I have got in front of me, or I will have eventually. Can you see me, Rosa?
Yes, I can see you.
Ah, here we are. There we go.
Yes.
Okay. I've got a kind of off the cuff question for you to start with.
Okay.
Because you've just done a debut novel, but before we get into that, I've got two names on. I've got a little pad here, and I've got Rosa Carr, and I've got Carolina De Vivo.
Yes, that's me. Both of them are me. I decided to write under a pen name.
So which one is you've written under Rosa Carr, which is a pen name?
Yes.
So your name is Carolina or Carolina De Vivo?
Yes, Carolina De Vivo.
So my first question, to be honest, is that's a beautiful name. Why didn't you use that as your author name then?
Yeah, so when I originally started writing, I was still at university, and I had plans to eventually pursue a career in psychology, whether it be as a therapist or in the academic world.
Right.
And either way, I would need to use my name professionally. So I had made the decision then to write under a pen name.
Okay. Where did you actually get Rosa Carr from then?
Okay, so Rosa is actually my middle name, so it really is my name. And then Carr is just short for my first name, Carolina.
Oh, very clever. I mean, I've just written an adult crime fiction series. My name is Colin R Parsons, children's author, but for my adult series, I'm called Jake Ridge.
Okay.
So I've kind of because I didn't want the children reading my adult stuff.
That's fair enough.
So you've got a debut novel, which is very exciting. It's always exciting to have a new book out. Is it actually published and out by Crystal Peake now, or is it due out?
Yes, it's out on Kindle at the moment. The paperback is due next month.
So, could you tell me a little bit about you first, where you're from, and how you got into writing?
I'm originally from South Africa. I grew up there until I was about 21.
Yeah.
And then I moved to the UK. I'm based outside of London.
Right.
In the southeast. So I have been here for a few years, and I started writing in my second year of university.
Okay.
Back when I was still in South Africa. And then it did take a few years to finally formulate the full story. And then it was only once I was here that I finally finished the story completely.
How did you first acclimatize to the UK then? Because I'm assuming that South Africa is very hot.
Yes.
And South London is very cold.
Yes, the weather is one thing that I do miss from South Africa. And I do miss the summers when we have so little of it here in the UK. But otherwise, I've acclimatized quite well. Putting aside the weather, everything else has been great.
So if you had a winter in South Africa, what kind of temperatures are you talking?
Probably springtime here.
Oh wow!
So the nights get quite cold.
Yeah.
There, but during the day it can be quite warm with the sun shining.
Oh, okay. So what I'm going to ask you next is, should I call you Rosa or should I call you Carolina?
Either way, Rosa for the book purposes.
Okay, then Rosa. This Air Fay is the name of this book, which when Crystal Peake started advertising it, I thought, what a really unusual title. It's unlike any title I've come across, because you get run-of-the-mill titles for different novels, but Air Fay really stood out.
I'm glad to hear that.
Could you tell me a little bit about the story then?
So the book is about fairies, so the Fay part of the title. It's about a girl who wakes up and she doesn't know what's happened to her, and she discovers that she is actually a fairy with wings and everything.
Well, my granddaughter, who's 5 in a week Sunday, she's into Tinkerbell. So I've just had a full series on Disney Plus of Tinkerbell. And so I'm kind of into fairies at the moment.
Great.
So she wakes up one day and she's a fairy.
Yes.
So what kind of powers and stuff does she have? No, how was her life changed then?
So she doesn't actually remember that her life as a human. So the whole part of the book is discovering or recovering her memories and learning to adapt to the new world that she finds herself in.
So what kind of abilities have she got as a fairy? What can she do?
Initially nothing, because she doesn't think that she's got these powers. And
Yeah.
then she slowly does discover that she has powers, and I won't tell you what they are because
Okay,
that's a spoiler.
That's fair enough. Okay. So what gave you the idea for this story initially then?
So I've used to be really fascinated with fairies, and when I was younger, I had a whole lot of little ornaments of fairies.
Yeah.
And I found a book to learn how to draw fairies and the fairy world.
Sketching kind of thing.
Yes, yeah, exactly. And then whilst I was, practicing my drawing, I just had a thought of what would it be like to wake up as a fairy.
Yeah.
And then I just wrote it. I just started writing one day, and
Like an epiphany then.
yes.
So because I don't know why, but at the moment, I don't know if it's just because of my granddaughter, but everything seems to be fairies. Because if we go for a walk when we're allowed, there's fairy gardens that pop up in different places. We've got when my granddaughter comes over, we got a fairy garden at the bottom of the garden with the doors, and that seems to be a big theme at the moment, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think they go in in waves and stages. So I remember when I was a teenager, late teens, vampires were all the trend.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then it moved into werewolves, and then we had a bit of zombies there for a while.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you had the Twilight thing.
Yeah,
And you had the Walking Dead.
exactly.
So what's the target age for Air Fay then?
She's a late teenager, 18 or 19 years old. She's just finished university, but the actual book itself, I'd say, could be anywhere between 12 and
It's
up.
not too graphic for somebody
No,
who's just gone into secondary school then.
no, I did keep it fairly low key on the graphics. There's one battle scene, but nothing too graphic there. So I think it could be suitable for younger teenagers.
So with this being your debut novel, I find a lot of authors like myself write short stories. Have you written short stories in the past, or has it all just been this novel?
Mainly I focus on longer pieces, but I am part of a writing group as well.
Oh, okay.
And for practice, we do a lot of flash fiction, so
Yeah.
100 to 300 word stories.
And bounce ideas off each other.
Exactly. And actually part of the group, we self-published an anthology of our stories a few years ago.
Yeah.
And we're in the process of doing another one at the moment. So I've
Okay.
had a bit of experience with those kind of short stories.
So you're doing it all through, I don't know, Zoom or something like that? Are you like we do it now, or
Yes.
or FaceTime or whatever?
Yes, for a year now we've moved to Zoom, all electronic.
Were you in the writers group before the lockdown?
Yeah, so the group itself has been going on for about 5 or 6 years now.
And you've been
we
a
used
member.
to meet, yeah, we used to meet in person, and then we had to move on to Zoom recently.
Did you meet in like in the local library or a pub or something, or?
It was part of the library, but not the library itself. So the local library put on an event with an authors panel.
Yeah.
And we just happened to be in the audience, and someone said, is there a writing group locally? And no one could think of one offhand. So we said, okay, let's make one. And
That's good. That's
how
good.
we started.
So you obviously get your ideas from you there and everywhere. Is there a particular place you like to write?
Not really. I do most of my writing, at home on my computer, but I as you say, I do take inspiration from around me. So when I'm out and about, and if I have any ideas, I'll just jot them down on my phone or a notebook or something. But mainly I just do my writing at home.
So, and like you said, you've got launched basically. I mean, when we got new books coming out, we'd love to do a live event somewhere. So if you could have maybe maybe the pandemic hadn't happened then, would you have maybe tried to launch it somewhere, or would you like a festival, or would you?
I'd probably start something a bit lower key, like in a bookshop or a library.
Yeah.
I used to work in a library, so I feel a bit at home in a library. So that probably would have been my first choice.
Well, I've got obviously I've got the Gamer with Crystal Peake, and I've got a couple of other books coming out. And the first thing I'm going to be doing when things start to relax a little bit is maybe do a library tour.
It's a good idea.
And tour the country that way. It's a good way to meet people.
Yes.
Like-minded people who enjoy reading as well. So you've been writing a few years now, then, really. What are you working on at the moment? Have you got anything on the go that you in the middle of? Or?
Well, Air Fay actually is part of it's the first in a series, so I'm working on the next, the second book, which is set in fire. So each in the world that my book is set in, there's 4 kingdoms, each for one for each of the elements. So I've now moved on to fire for the second one. And I've got a couple of other ideas that are just, spinning around.
If you don't mind me asking, then how do you plan the novel itself when you're starting off? Because I've got a friend of mine who does one of these. Do you know the series NCIS, where they've got the big screen and they got all the strings and all that? What's your process of actually starting a story off then?
For the first book, I didn't actually have a plan, so I just, one day sat down and wrote. And then I decided for the next book and any other books that I write to try and actually plan it out. So I've got a rough skeleton timeline, as it were, for the second one, and I'm trying to keep to that. But obviously, writing changes the story as it goes along. For the moment, I've mostly kept to that original timeline that I've set out.
So you've got a criteria that you work to, but when I'm writing something and I'm kind of rolling along, I'm a bit unorthodox. I don't know where I'm going. Do you know what the end of the story is before you get there, or?
For the second book, I have an idea of where I want it to end up, and I hope to end up there, but we'll see, as you say, as it goes along.
You're a lot more organized than I am then. So if you're halfway through writing a book then, and would you think, oh wow, a different character would be good to you? Would you kind of build the character up that wasn't originally in there?
I haven't yet, but it is possible. I had a similar situation, not quite that, but I had started writing a new character in the second book, and I was writing and it just didn't feel right, and I couldn't figure out why there was a block there, and I realized that I'd completely written the character wrong, so I had to go back and change everything about that character, and then it seemed to work better.
So you got to a blip in the story that you couldn't get around or over, and you thought, well, maybe another character would fit in there, and that would make the story flow along and run a little bit more smoothly.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, one of the big problems that I get when I'm writing something is if I've got a group of characters of about 6 or 8 characters, I always forget what color their eyes are, or their hair, or what color skin they got. How do you work on that? Do you have notes and things that you can go reference, or you look like an organized kind of person to me?
Yes, I tried that. So when I was writing the first one and I was developing the world and the characters, I did kind of plan the other characters as well at the same time.
Yeah.
So I've got a rough idea of what they are, but I haven't made note of the specifics of the new characters, to be honest.
There's there's a well-established author. He's a world-renowned crime fiction writer, and I still find it comical now because this author has written, I don't know, 30 novels maybe. I wouldn't say what his name is, but whenever he sends his manuscript to the editor, they've always got to correct the colors of the eyes and the hairs, because he always forgets which character, what color the hair and eyes and skin, and the shape of their hair. So it is difficult to keep track, especially if you write novel after novel. You can get lost in your own story, can't you?
But one good thing about books is that the reader can imagine the character however they want.
I suppose,
so
yeah.
Maybe being too prescriptive of what your character looks like would actually impede the reader's imagination.
Well, I suppose if you let the reader imagine from themselves, and you just put kind of an outline of the character, they can picture what the character looks like, can't they?
Exactly.
Yes, brilliant. I don't know, a seasoned author, or some people say an old dog. So I've been doing this for quite a few years, but it's great talking to authors who just got on the scene with a debut novel, because you've got fresh ideas, you've got different directions where you were going, and I miss the fact that we can all sit down around a table somewhere, like your readers group then.
Yes.
And discuss what you're on, and you could be stuck on something and somebody else could have an idea to help you get through it.
That's true. So when I was first writing my book, I was trying to write it by myself. I hadn't actually told anyone at all.
Yeah.
And I was struggling a bit. And then I told someone, and when I actually vocalized what I was doing and even just explaining the story, helped me create more and think about things better. And it was maybe even like simple questions to explain the world got me elaborating the world more and creating more.
When you've got say 2 or 3 characters having a conversation in your story, this might sound a bit weird coming from another author, but can you hear their voices in your head? Do they sound like? The reason I'm saying that is if I kind of use film stars' voices. So if I've got something like a wily old wizard, then I'll think of Patrick Stewart, who is in Star Trek Next Generation, or the guy who plays Gandalf out of the Lord of the Rings. I can't think of his name is at the moment.
Ian McKellen.
I've got their voices in my head, so I can picture what the conversation would look like.
That's interesting. I don't actually, I can't think that my characters actually have voices, but they've got, I mean, I can hear them talking when I'm writing, but I can't actually describe what their voices are like.
It's just the way I write it. So we all write in different ways. So
wow.
So thank you very much for talking with me. I think
thank you very much.